The Phantom. The Phantom is a fictional character that is credited as being the first costumed hero. He has appeared in comics, television shows, games, and even a movie. What started as a small comic strip in the 1930s grew into a mid-sized franchise by the 1990s. However, the character would fall from relevance soon after. Some of you young millennials and older generations may remember the character from previous decades and noticed he has not had any relevant media in a long time. So let's see how the character began and how he ended up in current day. Now let's dive into a history of the Phantom. The 1930s. In February 1936, writer and cartoonist Lee Falk premiered the Phantom character in a newspaper comic strip. The original comic strip was black and white for a few years. The first story was titled The Singh Brotherhood, which ran from February 1936 till November of 1936. The Singh Brotherhood is a global criminal organization and adversaries of the Phantom. The story begins aboard a ship called the SS Trotter, which is nearing closer to the New York harbor. There's a young woman named Diana Palmer who is boxing with a crewmate. A couple of pages later, a small boat of men approaches the SS Trotter, and the men board the ship. They point a gun at Diana and take her somewhat hostage and sit her down in a room. Then a mysterious masked figure is seen boarding the ship. The gangsters are talking when suddenly lights on the ship go out. Then the masked man comes to the door. The main gangster identifies him as the Phantom. They shoot at the Phantom but don't hit him. When they point a flashlight at the spot where Diana was, she is gone. The Phantom hides her in the crow's nest above the deck of the ship and proceeds to take out some of the gangsters on the ship, and sets off an electric current to freeze all the pirates in place. After this, he goes back for Diana and rescues her from the ship. And this would be the beginning of this version of the Phantom. In 1938, the Phantom would appear for the first time in a comic book in Ace Comics number 11. He would debut in a brown costume that went along with the comic. However, in May 1939, the Sunday strip debuted with the Phantom's costume being purple, and this would become the signature color for the Phantom in future series. Also, in this story, it tells about the background of the Phantom. A boy named Christopher Walker was aboard a merchant ship in the Bay of Bengal when it was attacked by the Singh Brotherhood pirates. After the merchant ship is destroyed, Christopher is washed ashore in Bengala, a fictional country in Africa. While washed ashore, some natives nursed him back to health, and he saw his father's dead body in the sand, and he realized the Singh pirates had killed him. From there, he swore an oath on a skull to destroy evil, piracy, and greed. And this was the beginning of the first Phantom. As the series continues, we learn that there are many Phantoms. As each Phantom dies, generally his son takes up the mantle and becomes the next one. For the most part, the Phantom doesn't have any powers. Just a pair of pistols, some animal friends like a horse and a wolf, and some rings on his fists when he's kicking some ass. The 1940s. The Phantom comic strips were reprinted by Ace Comics, published by David McKay Publications. The first Phantom appeared in India in the 1940s in a magazine called The Illustrated Weekly of India, which carried Phantom Sundays. Also, the Phantom, or Fantomen as he's known in Sweden, first appeared in Sweden in 1940 in a publication titled Vecko Raven. It contained a full-page comic strip in color. In 1943, the Phantom movie was released starring Tom Tyler. This movie is about a Professor Davidson who plans an expedition to find the lost city of Zolaz. The location of the city is believed to contain 7 pieces of ivory, 3 of which Davidson already possesses. Dr. Bremer, however, intends to find the lost city and use it as a secret airbase for his unnamed country. Dr. Bremer kills the Phantom because he's an obstacle in his way. However, his recently turned son, Jeffrey Prescott, inherited the family identity and took over the mantle of the Phantom. This is a serial movie with 15 chapters that ends on a cliffhanger. The 1950s. In 1951, Harvey Comics published Harvey Comics Hits number 51, Phantom, which would be the first Phantom comic published under the publisher. The hero would appear on the covers of issues number 51 1956. Later in 1957, Harvey Comics would produce Harvey Hits, which the Phantom would appear on 8 of the covers. The 1960s. Gold Key Comics took over publishing the Phantom in 1962, when it released the Phantom #1. The story starts out with a hunter throwing a spear at a lion, and he misses. The lion charges for the hunter when suddenly, the Phantom shoots the lion and rescues him. The hunter explains how he was being tested but failed. Suddenly, they're both arrested and are taken to a prince, Raygon. Raygon's servant tells the Phantom about the prince's game, where he has people go through 7 obstacles, and if they win, they will gain their desires. The Phantom refuses the games and decides to escape along with the hunter. The prince has his men shoot at the Phantom, but they escape. Meanwhile, Prince Raygon has his men do research on the Phantom, and they find his love interest Diana and they capture her. The Phantom finds out about it and decides to play Raygon's game. In 1967, King Comics released issue number 20, which featured Kid Walker's twin sister, Julie Walker, as the Phantom. In 1969, Charlton Comics would take over publishing the Phantom, starting with issue number 30 titled The Secret of the Golden Ransom, in which Julie Walker would appear again. The 1970s. Charlton Comics would continue publishing the Phantom comics until 1977. Also in the 70s, Avon Publications released 15 novels starting in 1972 with The Story of the Phantom, The Ghost Who Walks. The 1980s. In 1985, Galoob Toys began releasing Defenders of the Earth action toys, which included a Phantom action figure with a lash whip set. In 1986, he would appear in a TV series, Defenders of the Earth, alongside other heroes like Flash Gordon, Mandrake the Magician, Lothar, and a few others. And let me tell you, the theme song is a banger.
Defenders of the Earth! Defenders! Out of the sky, his rockets ignite! Jets into battle, flying faster than light!
Whoever sung this was singing like their life depended on it. Also in the 1980s, DC Comics would publish a Phantom series, starting in 1988 with Volume 1. It starts off in the Skull Cave with the 21st Phantom, Kid Walker, reading the Chronicles of the First Phantoms. He's interrupted by his nephew Rex, who tells him that the Bandar tribe needed his help. And this would be the first of 12 issues published by DC. The 1990s. In 1994, the Phantom 2040 TV series debuted and ran for 35 episodes. The TV series takes place in the year 2040, which is set in a more futuristic world than previous Phantom comics. In 1995, the Phantom 2040 video game was released for Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, and Game Gear. This game was loosely based on a TV show, and I remember playing it on my Sega Genesis when I was a kid, and loved the gameplay in the futuristic setting. In June of 1996, the Phantom movie, starring Billy Zane, was released in theaters. The movie is set in the 1930s, and is about a crime lord named Xander Drax trying to get his hands on 3 magical skulls that will give him unlimited power. This movie is a 90s hero movie in every way, from corny jokes.
What is this, a ship full of women?
All my pilots are women.
Interesting. Excuse me.
Silly action scenes. And a cartoony, outlandish villain.
It's magnificent! Show me the power! Show me the power!
However, as a kid, this was a great movie. Also, when it came out, the theaters gave out the Skull Phantom rings, which I was able to get my hands on one. The 2000s. In 2002, Moonstone Books published 5 graphic novels and a comic book series in 2003. This series ran up until 2009. Afterwards, Moonstone debuted a retelling of the series with issue number 0 that told the beginnings of the character. Now the 2000s is when we start to see the Phantom falling off in visual media, at least in the United States, with hero movies such as Spider-Man, Batman, The Punisher, and Blade coming to the scene, and even the Marvel and DC cartoon series coming out around that time, like Justice League and Teen Titans. The 2010s. In June 2010, the Phantom miniseries aired on Sci-Fi Channel in the United States, starring Ryan Carnes as Chris Moore, aka Kid Walker, the 22nd Phantom. The show is about Chris Moore finding out that he is related to the Phantom lineage and his battle with the same brotherhood. The series also reimagines the suit, and I don't know how anyone thought the suit was a good idea. It looks like an alternative Judge Dredd suit, the one that didn't get the approval. Anyways, in 2013, Dynamite Entertainment published the King's Watch series, which has the Phantom teaming up with Mandrake the Magician, Lothar, and Flash Gordon. The 2020s. In 2020, Regal Publishers, an Indian publishing company, began publishing Phantom comics. So far, they have made 38 issues. As of 2024, there's supposed to be a Phantom video game to be released on the PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch. As we are midway through the 2020s, the Phantom is still more of a cult classic hero, still overshadowed by his DC and Marvel counterparts, at least in the United States. He still has a larger following abroad in countries like India, Australia, and some of the Nordic countries, as they have consistently printed Phantom comics in their newspaper and comic books. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more content.